So a couple days ago, I posted a community post asking you guys for questions and topics to talk about for today's video, and you guys gave me a lot to talk about. I'm not going to make a recap video for today, mainly because there was nothing interesting in the Warriors Den except for some new emotes, and I'm not going to waste your time with that. Anyways, we've got a bunch of interesting things to go over, so let's not waste any more time and get right into it. Starting with one of the more popular questions by Smoking Swampart. Do you think Year the Harbinger could be new heavy heroes? All of the new heroes were assassins and hybrids except for the Wulin faction. I talked about this in my Year the Harbinger video, but I do think that we'll get more heavy heroes next year. I think it would be really strange for UB to keep adding assassins and hybrids, and judging by that hammer or maul in the teaser image, I'm really assuming it belongs to a heavy hero. I think For Honor needs more heavy heroes, as the game really lacks them. I mean, we've got large heroes in the game like Shigoki, Lawbringer, Raider, Highlander, Conk, and Zhang Jun, but none of them really feel like hard-hitting, tanky, powerful heroes. Even Shigoki and Lawbringer, even though he's not really a heavy, I'm sure that they're on the way sometime next year. Will we see one in Season 9? I'm not sure. Next week we're supposed to have this really big Warriors Den, so I'm hoping that we'll see something on there. I doubt it'll be a full-blown reveal or anything, but hopefully it's just a small teaser that gives us something to work with. As I've said before, it'll be really interesting to see how a heavy hero or heroes get implemented into this game, since it's getting much faster, and having a slower hero wouldn't really do too well unless they add some sort of new mechanic. I've seen some of you guys suggesting something like hyper armor for neutral for heavy heroes, and I'm not sure I really want that. I don't want to see heavies just camp walls and trade with hyper armor for guard breaks. Zephaniah Thornton says, you think they'll add any Lin Maps and minions? I think that eventually they'll add Lin Maps and minions to the game. I think it would just be weird to not add them to the faction war and not giving them any maps, considering the big deal UB made about Marching Fire and the Wulin. Breach and the Wulin were like the whole selling point of the expansion, barring arcade mode, so I think more content surrounding them is inevitable. I may not like the Wulin as a faction, but I'm sure there are tons of people who do, and honestly, I think that the Wulin would have some of the best looking maps in the game. So yeah, I think they'll get their own maps and minions by the end of next year. Average K goes, I feel like Scent is way weaker than people make him out to be. I mean in the sense that Shugo and Lawbringer have situational usefulness, while Scent doesn't seem to shine in any one aspect anymore. I'd like to hear you talk about that. I've talked about Scent a few times. A long time ago I talked about how insane he was. A few months ago I talked about how he isn't as good as he used to be. I think Centurion really needs to be worked on. He's one of the coolest heroes in the game, and I think that UB does have plans to work on him eventually. They've got something interesting up their sleeve for the Shigoki rework, and if that goes well for his attacks, they plan on doing something similar with Centurion. So we'll just have to wait until then to see anything done to Centurion. I can't tell you how many times I've seen comments from newer players talking about how Centurion is OP and broken, and that's just not true. I mean, yeah, he's got his cutscene, but that's about it. My Life is a Lie says, I was wondering, why do you think that the devs don't care about balance? Do you think they believe that this game isn't worth their money and time, or are they just lazy? We'll love to hear your thoughts. So I do think that the devs care about balance. As we've seen, there's some effort going into working on the actual fighting in For Honor. The problem is that UB just moves way too slow. I don't think that they believe the game isn't worth the time and money, and I don't think the dev team is just super lazy or anything. It's just that the game gets unbelievably stale at times, with nothing to fight for except for rep. There's no challenges, no good ranked mode, and a few game modes. The game needs to feel fresh, and I'm not asking for weekly huge changes or anything, because I know that's not possible and it would be terrible for the game. I'm just asking for some more frequent updates rather than seasonal updates. But to answer your question, I don't think the devs don't care about balance. The pacing is a problem. Brianna Green wants me to talk about the toxic community and how toxicity is ruining the game. I was going to make a whole video about this and then realized that I actually don't think the community is as toxic as it used to be. When I play on PC, the chat is pretty tame. Comment sections are a lot less awful than they used to be, And I think that's because most of the people have weeded themselves out. I think the people who still manage to play this game actually like it. That's not me saying that there aren't any toxic people or anything, because there definitely are, but you don't run into as many as you used to. I hardly ever receive hate mail in duels and brawls nowadays, whereas before I'd get it all the time. If you consider emote spam and quick chat spam toxic, then yeah, you'll always run into that, but ledging and ganking and stuff like that isn't toxic. I really don't think this game and its community is as bad as it used to be. Alright, so Dismo says, I don't know if you've already talked about this, but was adding the Wulin faction good for the game? He says that he prefers the Knights, Vikings, and Samurai, and so do I. I talked about this for a little bit, I think last week, so I'll go over it quickly. I do think the Wulin were a good addition to For Honor. I think they were a good addition for the game as a whole. I also would have loved to see new heroes for the existing factions rather than the Wulin, only because I don't like their design and personalities. For Honor desperately needed some new content, and you gotta hand it to Ubi. They delivered a big chunk of content, 4 new heroes and one of the best game modes the game has delivered so far. The timing could have been better. I feel that Marching Fire would have been better received if they released it a little bit earlier while the hype train was still going strong, but overall I do think that the Wulin faction was good for the game. Thoughts on Lawbringer, Raider, and also who is your least and favorite character in For Honor? Lawbringer and Raider are both a little weak. I've talked about this before, and they're some of my favorite heroes in the game right now. As for my absolute favorite hero, it's a tie between Valkyrie and Raider, and my least favorite hero is still Shinobi. Ravens Football 52 says, do you see the devs making mid-season balance changes in the new season, or will we get more of the same from the last seasons? I hope they heard our complaints and will give us more frequent balance changes like they did in the past. So I don't think that we'll ever see the pacing from season 1 ever again. I believe that nothing will really change in terms of their update schedule right now, but I'm really hoping I'm wrong. I know they've heard the complaints, I think they've addressed it, but I just don't see anything changing anytime soon. Bacon Taco with a really long one. I've been on the competitive subreddit quite a bit lately, and obviously the reputation isn't the greatest, and that's not without reason. But I think people really ought to go on there a lot more. People don't give the competitive scene enough credit in my opinion, and the competitive scene doesn't give people enough of its attention. We, as in competitive players, should be working towards making the competitive side of the game more accessible and desirable to newer or more casual players. Obviously, competitive For Honor isn't the biggest or most competition friendly, but from what I've seen, all of us want it to grow. I honestly think that the competitive subreddit is a great source of information. I cannot stress that enough. And I think that everyone should visit it more often, as there's usually a whole bunch of stuff in there that you can learn from. There's a whole bunch of helpful people in there with tons of experience. Most of the regulars have a really deep understanding of the game. When you say that you think the competitive scene doesn't get enough credit, I think that's because not a lot of people really care for Honor tournaments and all of that. As for not giving people enough attention, I think if anyone wants to get attention or whatever from the competitive scene, I think that you need to contribute a lot and participate in the events, as is the case with any community. Now, I've said before that I think the ship has sailed for competitive For Honor. Ubi sort of blew it with that big tournament they held, but there still are smaller tournaments that I think everyone can participate in, and Ubi's been trying to shout those out every week. I'm not sure if there's much the players themselves can do to improve the scene, if you want to call it that. I think that first, Ubi desperately needs to add some sort of basic spectator mode so that the current tournaments are just more interesting to watch, and then work on updating the game more frequently. Splice wants me to talk about the female Tiandi and the first section of Forge on duels. Both are really loud, but I'm fine with that. Female Tiandi is just really funny to listen to, and Dual Forge isn't that bad unless you've got your headphones turned all the way up. Both of them together is a completely different story though. To all the questions about the future of For Honor and whether or not I think it will survive, my thoughts have changed on it just a little bit. I know that there's still tons of doom and gloom surrounding the game, not as much as there was a month ago, but I don't think the game will die out entirely. This game still has its moments, and as long as the game is super cheap and people still have some sort of interest in Samurais, Vikings, and Knights slicing each other up, the game will sell. It will never have its siege type resurgence. It probably will never get near the top of Twitch ever again, and it definitely will never have 200,000 players on Steam again, but that doesn't mean that there won't be a dedicated community around the game. I still think after the year the Harbinger is over, you know, going into 2020, that the game won't have the same support from the dev team, but who knows, maybe UB will announce something about another title or something. Devin Haynes asks, do you think that every new hero / rework coming out except for Shaolin and Kensei's are both lazily made? I'm fine with heroes having quicker attacks to have something viable, but that's all UB is focusing on. Hardly any of the heroes or reworks have a good moveset. It's just unfun, fast, hard-hitting light attacks that UB slaps on a hero and calls it a day. So I think that Kensei had the best rework by far, completely recreated the hero, and Peacekeeper obviously had the worst. It was just a big old nerf and a dagger cancel basically. The rest have all been sort of lackluster now that I look back on it. The Wu Lin though, I don't think are that bad. Shaolin was well made, Tiandi's moveset is short but interesting, Jane June has a fun gimmick, and Nusha's traps are a brand new mechanic. So I don't think that the Wu Lin were lazily made. Orochi, Warden, Conqueror, and Valkyrie on the other hand all had reworks that do feel sort of bare compared to Kensei. Like they weren't complete reworks, and sometimes I feel like they were just rushed. I wish Warden was more of a swordsman. I wish that Conqueror had more offense other than a shield bash, things like that. I'm not really sure what I wanted Orochi to be though. I think that UB just sort of dropped the ball when it comes to making the heroes feel more fun to play as and against. Fizzy Purple says, what should or could bring me back to For Honor and players like me? I'm a vet who's played since open beta but haven't played the game in a couple of months now and don't really feel like coming back. What do you think they could do to bring us back in? I really don't think there's much that could really bring players who are burnt out back, because I mean, the game's the game. The fighting will always be the same, just with a few different tweaks. And if you're tired of it, then there's not much UB could do to bring you back. If Marching Fire couldn't capture your interest, I'm not really sure what will. Unless UB pulls something crazy out of their bag with whatever they're getting ready to reveal in these next couple of weeks, then I really have no clue what could recapture a player's interest in For Honor, other than a brand new title like For Honor 2 or something. Scotch Tape 317 asks, what are your thoughts on Godzilla King of Monsters or Mortal Kombat 11? The Godzilla trailer looked really good, and the MK11 trailer looked even better. I didn't think that they could top MKX's trailer because that was amazing, but they did even better this time around. I'm a huge Mortal Kombat fan, and I'm really excited for MK11 after we experienced how fun MKX was. I can't wait to play the beta since Mortal Kombat has such style and is just fun to play. The screenshots look a lot more colorful than MKX, which is great because MKX looked really gloomy. I'm excited to see what kind of changes they make to the game this time around, and I'll definitely be there for the beta when that drops. And finally, to all the questions surrounding Smash and other content on the channel, I'll try to answer all of these at once. So yes, I have been playing Smash recently, and I plan on releasing a video on it pretty soon, since it's my first Smash game that I actually remember. I do want to branch out to other content, but I'm being very careful since YouTube is touchy. I will start talking about more games in the future, since For Honor isn't as fun to me as it was in the past. I think that this is my first video in like a week, mainly because I haven't been playing For Honor at all, but I do love making videos and interacting with you guys, so the plan is to continue making For Honor videos, just not at the pace that I was, as well as making videos about other games I've been playing, since I try to get my hands on just about everything that comes out. Anyways, that's all I've got for this video. I'll continue to try and make one of these every month and a half or so, since it's a good way to answer a ton of questions at once and respond directly to you guys. Plus, I really just like making them. I do want to hear you guys' opinion though, so talk to me down in the comments about anything I talked about in this video, from the Wu Lin to the lifespan of the game. And as usual, if you liked the video, feel free to leave a like and stuff if you're new, and I will talk to you guys in the next video.